We think of a maze as a puzzle to be solved, a test of the mind, a geometric game with a beginning and an end. But in the ancient world, a maze was something entirely different. It was a prison designed for a single, terrible secret. Deep beneath the glittering, sun-drenched palaces of ancient Crete, away from the gold, the trade ships, and the laughter of courts, there was a place where the light died. A place of endless, winding stone paths where every turn looked exactly like the last. And at the absolute center of this darkness sat a creature that should not have existed, a creature born of a broken oath, a divine curse, and human pride. Most people believe this is simply a story about a hero who killed a monster, but they are looking at the wrong part of the pattern. If you appreciate ancient myths unfolded with simple language but deep meaning, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let us step past the stone gates and into the labyrinth. In modern pop culture, the story of the Minotaur is treated like a classic fantasy adventure. We picture a terrifying, brainless beast, half man, half bull, waiting in the dark like a boss in a video game, waiting for a brave warrior named Theseus to navigate the stone corridors, swing his sword, and save the day. It is clean. It is simple. It is a classic tale of good triumphing over evil. But if this was only a monster story, why did the ancient Greeks keep telling it with such a profound sense of heavy, lingering tragedy? Why would one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient Mediterranean place this specific creature at the absolute center of their foundational lore? When we look closer at the ancient texts, we find that the Minotaur was never just a mindless predator. The real horror of the myth does not come from the teeth or the horns of the beast. It comes from the choices of the men who built its cage. What fear was this story really trying to name? To understand the monster, we have to look at the crown. Our story does not begin in a dark cave. It begins in the brilliant, blinding light of the Mediterranean Sea. King Minos of Crete was a man who had everything, yet wanted more. He was locked in a bitter struggle with his brothers for the right to rule the island, to prove that the gods themselves favored his claim to the throne. Minos prayed to Poseidon, the ruler of the oceans. He begged for a sign, a manifestation of divine right so undeniable that his rivals would have no choice but to bow. Minos made a solemn vow: whatever rose from the waves, he would immediately sacrifice back to the sea as a token of absolute devotion and humility. Poseidon listened. The waters stirred, the waves parted, and from the foaming surf rose a creature of terrifying beauty. A bull, pure white, magnificent, and gleaming like polished marble. It was a flawless gift from the deep. The people fell to their knees. Minos had won his throne. But looking at the magnificent animal, greed took root in the king's heart. The white bull was far too valuable, far too beautiful to destroy. Minos convinced himself that he could outsmart the gods. He hid the divine bull away in his private herds and sacrificed a standard, ordinary bull in its place, hoping the Lord of the oceans would not notice the substitution. But the gods always notice. Poseidon's punishment was not a lightning bolt or a sudden plague. It was far more subtle and far more cruel. He did not strike Minos down. Instead, he altered the desires of the king's own household. A strange, unnatural infatuation was placed upon Queen Pasiphae. She became utterly consumed by an obsession with the divine white bull. Desperate to fulfill this divine affliction, she turned to the most brilliant inventor of the ancient world, Daedalus, a master craftsman living in exile at the Cretan court. Daedalus, using wood, bronze, and synthetic hides, constructed a hollow, lifelike mechanism that allowed the queen to approach the divine beast undetected. From this union of divine curse and human ingenuity, a child was born. When the infant arrived, it was not a child of comfort. It possessed the body of a human, but the heavy, horned head of a bull. The queen, overwhelmed by remorse and sorrow, named him Asterion. In the ancient tongue, Asterion means the Starry One. It was a beautiful name given to a tragic life. But as the child grew, he could not be sustained by normal means. He grew wild, powerful, and driven by an insatiable hunger that could not be tamed. King Minos was trapped. He could not kill the creature without inviting even greater wrath from the gods, for the boy was a walking reminder of the king's own broken oath. Yet, he could not allow this living testament to his shame to walk free among his people, tearing at the fabric of his perfect, orderly society. Once again, Minos turned to Daedalus. The king demanded a solution that would hide his failure forever. He did not ask for a weapon to destroy the beast. He asked for an architecture of denial. Daedalus set to work beneath the foundations of the royal palace of Knossos. He designed the Labyrinth. This was not a standard prison with iron bars and guards. It was a massive, subterranean network of twisting corridors, blind alleys, and deceptive loops. The architecture was so brilliantly, so terrifyingly complex, that it is said even Daedalus himself barely managed to find his way out after completing it. It was a space designed to erase the very concept of direction. The young Asterion was led deep into the heart of this stone underworld. The heavy bronze doors were slammed shut, and the lock turned. The Starry One was cast into total, eternal darkness. He was no longer a prince, no longer a person, and no longer named Asterion. From that moment on, the world would only know him by a title, the Minotaur, the Bull of Minos. Years passed, and the secret in the dark demanded a terrible price to maintain. Following a bitter war with the city of Athens, King Minos imposed a cruel tribute upon the defeated mainlanders. Every 9 years, Athens was forced to send 14 of its finest youths, 7 young men and 7 young women, to the shores of Crete. They were not brought to face a trial. They were not brought to work the fields. They were marched through the grand, mocking halls of the palace, stripped of their weapons, and pushed into the entrance of the labyrinth. The heavy doors would close behind them, leaving them in a silent world of stone. They would wander for hours, perhaps days, terrified, lost, and listening to the distant, heavy echoes of hooves scraping against marble, knowing that somewhere in the dark, the lonely, hungry creature was drawing closer. This is where the myth becomes far more than an ancient monster story. To ancient listeners, the details of the labyrinth would not feel random. They would recognize a pattern that is profoundly human. The labyrinth is the physical shape of a human mind trying to hide its own worst mistakes. Think about what King Minos did. When faced with the physical consequence of his greed and his broken promise, he did not confess. He did not seek penance. Instead, he built an incredibly complex, expensive structure to bury the truth where no one could see it. The monster is not only a creature, it is the shape of a hidden guilt. Every time we refuse to face our errors, every time a society or an individual builds a wall around their worst impulses hoping they will simply fade away, they are building a labyrinth. And just like King Minos, we discover that the things we try to bury in the dark do not die. They grow. They become hungrier. And eventually, they require us to sacrifice our own youth, our own future, just to keep the secret quiet. Consider the tragedy of the Minotaur's true name, Asterion, the Starry One, Why would the ancient poets give a monster a name associated with the beautiful, infinite sky? Because it reminds us that the creature was born innocent. It did not choose its form. It did not ask to be born of a curse. It was a victim of the pride of a king and the anger of a god by locking him away in a place where he could never see the sky. Minos took away the only part of him that belonged to the stars. The myth forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. Who is the real monster of the story? Is it the beast acting on its raw, animal nature in the dark? Or is it the civilized king in his golden robes, who feeds innocent people to his hidden shame to protect his reputation? Across many ancient mythologies, we find a remarkably similar idea. The details are different, but the fundamental fear is deeply familiar. In the ancient Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, the heroes traveled to the vast, forbidden cedar forest to confront Humbaba, a terrifying guardian creature with a face made of twisted intestines, living at the center of an intricate, labyrinthine woodland. Just like the Minotaur, Humbaba is a force of nature, a creature of primal chaos hidden away from the civilized world of cities and laws. In the old legends of Egypt, historic writers like Herodotus spoke of a real, physical structure known as the Egyptian Labyrinth, a massive complex of 3,000 rooms, half of them underground, where the tombs of kings and the sacred, mummified remains of holy crocodiles were kept hidden from the eyes of the uninitiated. This does not mean these stories are identical or derived from the exact same event, but it shows that ancient peoples, separated by vast oceans and centuries of time, often use the exact same image to explain the exact same human condition. The maze, the dark forest, the underground chambers, these are universal symbols for the boundary between civilization and the wilderness. They represent the point where human order ends and the wild, unpredictable forces of the universe begin. To the ancients, going into the maze meant leaving behind the safety of human laws and stepping into a realm where only your true character could save you. Eventually, the cycle had to break. A young prince of Athens named Theseus volunteered to join the tragic tribute. He sailed to Crete, not as a helpless victim, but with a secret determination to end the horror. He succeeded, but not through raw strength alone. He survived because someone on the outside gave him a clue. Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, looked upon the young hero and chose to help him. She gave him a simple ball of red thread. Theseus tied the thread to the stone lintel of the entrance, and as he walked deeper into the terrifying darkness, the thread unspooled behind him. When he finally encountered the Minotaur at the center of the maze, the battle ended with the beast defeated. Theseus did not have to guess his way back through the impossible stone loops. He simply followed the slender red line back to the light. We still talk about this story today because we are all still searching for our own red thread. We live in a world that can often feel like a modern labyrinth, a complex web of choices, anxieties, regrets, and systems so vast that it is easy to lose our sense of direction entirely. We all have things we have hidden away in the deep corners of our lives, mistakes we hope no one discovers, fears we refuse to look at directly. The myth of the Minotaur reminds us that trying to navigate these inner darknesses through cleverness alone is never enough. Mindless pride will build the maze, but it takes something else to get out. It takes a connection to the outside world. It takes memory. It takes the willingness to hold on to the truth, no matter how far into the dark we have to go. And maybe that is why the myth has survived for thousands of years. Because the monster was never only waiting in the darkness of ancient Crete. Sometimes the labyrinth is our own design, and the creature is waiting at the center of us. If you want more ancient myths explained in this way, take a moment to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we explore the next story. Thank you for listening.